Stop right there and put that bucket down. Before you throw those cold, gray ashes into the trash, I want you to look at them with different eyes. All winter long, we burn wood to keep our homes warm. We clean the stove, sweep the chimney, and almost all of us make the same mistake. We take the ash outside, dump the bucket into the bin, and throw away something that ancient gardeners treated as a treasure. What many gardeners discard as trash is actually one of the oldest fertilizers used by our ancestors. Wood ash is a free source full of calcium, potassium, and magnesium. What looks like a pile of dust is actually one of the most powerful free fertilizers you will ever get your hands on. In the next few minutes, I want to show you why this gray dust can completely change the way your soil behaves, how your plants grow, and how your harvests taste. I also want to warn you about the real danger of using it the wrong way, because wood ash is not a toy. Handle it with respect, and it will feed your garden for years. Use it blindly, and it can burn tender plants, ruin your soil's balance, and destroy an entire season in a single afternoon. While we are busy buying bags of chemical fertilizer and shiny plastic, ancient wisdom is sitting quietly in the ash pan under the fire. So do not throw it away, keep watching, and I will show you the old trick that allows you to turn this ash into gentle food for your soil, not an enemy. Before we continue, let's talk about something crucial that many forget: your safety. Ash, when combined with water, becomes caustic and burning. That is why, before going out to the garden, always put on gloves, never spread ash on windy days. That fine dust is harmful to your lungs. If possible, wear a simple mask or stand with your back to the wind. Let our garden grow, but let's not compromise our health. To understand why ash is so powerful, we need to go back to basics and think about what fire actually does. A living tree is mostly water, carbon, and a little nitrogen. When you burn wood, the water evaporates into steam. The carbon and nitrogen go up the chimney as gases and smoke. And what is left in the stove is the skeleton of the tree in mineral form. All the elements that do not burn easily remain in that soft gray dust. A large part of that is calcium carbonate, the same substance you get when you buy garden lime to sweeten acidic soil. In fact, many tests show that wood ash can be between 25 and 40% calcium compounds. That is why gardeners who spread ash on acidic soil often notice that their soil becomes friendlier to most vegetables. The pH rises slowly, earthworms move closer to the surface, and locked up nutrients become available again. But calcium is only part of the story. Inside that ash, there is also a surprising amount of potassium, the element that ancient farmers used to call potash, because they made it by filtering water through pots filled with wood ash. The word potash literally comes from pot and ash. Potassium is like a health signal for plants. It helps them move water in and out of their cells, strengthens stem walls, supports flowering, and plays an important role in how sweet and tasty fruits and roots become. When you see a heavy tomato plant loaded with firm red fruits that do not crack at the first sign of rain, you are looking at a plant that has enough potassium. When you see robust brassicas resisting the wind and cold, that is also potassium in action. Along with calcium and potassium, you also get small but important amounts of magnesium, phosphorus, and trace elements like iron, zinc, and manganese. In other words, a tree spends decades extracting minerals from the subsoil, locking them in its wood. When you burn that wood, those minerals fall as ash. When you throw the ash away, you are literally throwing decades of slow, natural fertilizer extraction into the trash. Instead, you could be returning those minerals to your garden beds, closing the cycle between tree, fire, soil, and food. That is why old farms almost always had an ash pile near the garden. It wasn't just a place to dump waste, it was a simple, free way to keep their soil rich without ever stepping into a store. However, before you run outside and start spreading ash all over your garden beds, there is a serious warning. Wood ash is powerful because it is concentrated, and that means it can do a lot of damage if you put it in the wrong place or use too much at once. Fresh ash is highly alkaline. If you mix it with water, it is close to making lye, the same corrosive substance that people once used to make hard soap and to remove hair from hides. If you pile fresh ash in one spot and then plant tender seedlings right on top, the roots can burn. The cells in the plant can lose water to the salty, caustic environment around them and collapse. The leaves can turn brown from the edges inward. Growth can stop, and the plant can simply die. Never use ash from barbecue charcoal, painted wood, paper, or glossy magazines. Only pure, untreated wood. If you have a choice, prefer ash from hardwoods like oak. These contain up to 50% more nutrients and potassium than softwoods like pine. That is why the first rule of using wood ash is simple. Never pile, always sprinkle. You also have to remember that not all plants want their soil looser. Some species actually prefer life on the acidic side. Blueberries are a classic example. They evolved in naturally acidic environments. They need that acidic soil to absorb iron and other nutrients. If you spread wood ash around your blueberries, you will see their leaves turn pale and yellow, a sign that they can no longer absorb what they need from the soil. Azaleas, rhododendrons, camellias, and other acid lovers belong on that same no-ash list. Another important warning is for potatoes. Many gardeners have heard that potatoes like a little acidity, and that is true. When you raise the pH of potato soil too much, you create perfect conditions for a disease called common scab. It leaves rough, ugly patches and corky spots on the skins of your tubers. The potatoes might still be edible, but they look terrible and do not store as well. If you spread a lot of ash on the plot where you plan to grow potatoes next spring, you greatly increase the risk of scab. So keep potatoes and ashes separate. Also, be careful if your soil is already naturally alkaline or rich in calcium. In those situations, adding more ash could push the pH too high, locking up nutrients instead of releasing them. If you are not sure what your soil is like, you can use a simple pH test kit. They are cheap and easy to use. A few minutes of testing can tell you if ash will help or harm. Respect those numbers. It is easier to add a little ash each year than to fix a garden that has been overloaded with it. Once you understand the risks and are ready for the old method that allows you to use wood ash safely and effectively, start with purity. Use only clean, untreated wood ash. Logs, branches, and brush from your own property are perfect. Avoid ash from painted boards, plywood, particle board, or any wood that may have been treated with chemicals. Avoid coal ash or ash from most charcoal briquettes, especially those with lighter fluid or binders in them. Those ashes can contain heavy metals and residues that you do not want near your food. After you have clean ash, let it cool completely and store it in a dry metal container with a lid so it does not absorb moisture from the air. When you are ready to use it, pour the ash through a simple sieve or old colander to remove nails, half-burned chunks of charcoal, and large clumps. What you want is a fine, almost silky powder. This makes it easier to spread evenly. Ash raises soil pH. Do not eyeball it. Just a handful per square meter a year, about 50 to 70 gram, is enough. Any more poisons the soil. The best time to deliver that powder to your soil is in late winter or very early spring while the beds are still empty. Choose the areas where you grow vegetables that like neutral to slightly acidic soil, such as cabbages, beets, carrots, onions, beans, and many ornamentals. Stand back from the bed and sprinkle the ash by hand in a very thin layer, almost as if you were dusting sugar on a cake. You should still see soil between the grains of ash. If you make a solid white blanket, you are using too much. A rough guide is that a medium bucket of ash is enough for a very large garden bed, not a small patch. Where not to apply? Never near blueberries, rhododendrons, potatoes, causes scab disease, or other acid-loving plants. Do not apply ash together with fresh animal manure or nitrogen fertilizers at the same time. Ash turns the nitrogen in the manure into a gas that evaporates. Your work is wasted. Leave at least a month between applications. After you have sprinkled the surface, take a rake and gently pull the top inch of soil back and forth so the ash mixes in. Over the next few weeks, rain and melting snow will help carry those minerals deeper into the soil so that when you plant, the ash is no longer harsh and caustic, but has mellowed into a softer, more even presence in the root zone. Another beautiful old trick is to add ash in thin layers to your compost pile. The safest and smartest way to use ash is to add it to your compost. Alternate kitchen scraps and yard waste with light sprinklings of ash. This helps neutralize strong acids in the pile and feeds potassium and calcium directly into the compost. Acidic fruit peels and alkaline ash balance each other out. In spring, you will have perfect, balanced black gold. By the time that compost is ready, the ash will be completely mixed in and much milder. You can also use small amounts of ash on paths or around the edges of beds to discourage moss in very wet, acidic soil. Always think in terms of repeated light doses rather than large, dramatic dumps. This is slow medicine for your soil, not instant magic dust. There is one more way to put wood ash to work for you, not as a fertilizer, but as a simple physical barrier. To protect your vegetables, draw a circle of dry ash around them. This is an impassable barrier for snails and slugs, but beware when it rains, this barrier loses its effect and you need to renew it. Many gardeners fight an endless battle with snails and slugs, especially in cold, wet seasons. These soft-bodied creatures hate crossing dry, sharp, and salty surfaces. A thin ring of ash around young lettuces, cabbages, or other tender plants can make them think twice before paying a nighttime visit. You simply sprinkle a band of dry ash in a circle around the plant, wide enough so that a slug cannot easily cross it with a stretch of its body. When the pest tries to cross, the ash sticks to its skin, drawing out moisture and making the journey painful. Most of them will turn around and go look for easier food. The trick is that this barrier only works as long as the ash is dry. Rain or heavy dew will wash it into the soil, and the ring will disappear, so you need to renew it when the weather clears. Still, as part of a broader strategy, it can save many seedlings without using commercial pellets. When you start looking at ash this way, as something that can feed and protect your garden, the ancient cycle begins to make sense. The tree grows on your land, extracting nutrients that you could never reach with a shovel. You cut and burn the wood to stay warm during the winter. The fire concentrates those minerals into ash. You collect it instead of throwing it away and return measured amounts to the soil and compost. Over time, the plants that grow in that enriched soil feed you and your family, and the parts you don't eat go back to the compost pile. Nothing is wasted. This is how people kept gardens productive long before anyone sold blue crystals in plastic bags. Wood ash is nature's cycle. Do not throw it in the trash, but use it with respect. Smart gardening is not about working hard. It is about knowing the right thing to do. So the next time you clean your stove, do not think of that gray dust as dirt. Think of it as the silent memory of the tree waiting to be returned to the soil. Keep a bucket just for ash. Keep it dry. Use it with care and understanding, and it will serve you faithfully year after year. If you want to revive more of these forgotten methods and replace store-bought products with proven old tricks, stay with us. There are many more secrets like this hidden in the stories of our grandparents and in the habits of small farms that never had much money but always had good soil. For now, do one simple thing. Stop throwing away wood ash. Treat it like the garden gold it truly is, and let your soil show you the difference in the seasons to come. Discover more ancestral secrets that will transform your garden naturally and safely. If this story has changed the way you look at the ashes from your home, please subscribe and like our channel. We are unearthing the wisdom that others tried to forget. Grow the future with us. The next treasure of knowledge will open very soon.